Good morning, everybody. I think it is past 8 o'clock right now. Traffic was a little bad today for me, so I don't know if we're missing a few because of that too, although they're trickling now. It is calling to order the Tuesday Finance Committee meeting for May 13th, 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Member Cahill, Member Childress, Member Covert,
Here.
Member Desart, Member Eckhoff, Member Evans, Member Galassi, Member Garcia,
Here.
Member Heather, Member Honig, Member Krajewski, Member LaPlante, Member Ozag, Member Rutledge, Member Schwarzy, Member Tonatori, Member Yu, Member Zay.
All right. Thank you so much. Moving on to public comment. I've been told we do not have any. I don't know if there's any in here. No public comment. Perfect. Okay. Chairwoman's remark. I just wanted to state that we are in the process of the fiscal year 2026 budget kickoff starting today. Fiscal year 2026 budgets are due on June 27th. I encourage all elected officials and departments to read the budget instructions and documentation that will be emailed today. Provide all required documents and utilize the budget documentation checklist prior to submitting budgets. I know I've seen that checklist. It's fairly easy to just check off as you go along. So I'm just letting you know. Recommend that elected officials and departments develop their fiscal year 2026 budget to be more in line with prior year actual expenditures. The budget presentation schedule for committees will be sent to each elected official and department head. And I suggest working with the finance department in preparing your budgets. Again, the deadline on that is June 27th. The date now is May 13th, so there should be no reason anybody is late in turning those in. We want to make sure that everybody has enough time, but I think we're giving them plenty of time. So that's my chairwoman's remarks for today. Moving on to approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the Finance Committee for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025? I think we had a motion by Member Honig, second by Member Heather. I'm sorry. Member Childress was the motion. I'm sorry. Member Childress, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to budget transfers. Okay, can I get a motion to approve 25-1258 transfer of funds from 1,1180551 to benefit payments to various benefit payments accounts as attached in the amount of $1,939,893 to cover benefit payments expenses within the various departments currently budgeted within the general fund special accounts for fiscal year 2025. We had a motion by Member Heather, second by Member Rutledge. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve 25-1259 transfer of funds from the employer share IMRF to various employer share IMRF accounts as attached in the amount of $8,118,345,000 to cover employer share IMRF expenses with the various departments currently budgeted within the general fund special accounts for the fiscal year 2025. A motion by Member Rutledge, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve 25-1260 transfer of funds from the employer share Social Security to various employer share Social Security accounts as attached in the amount of $3,842,480 to cover employer share Social Security expenses within the various departments currently budgeted within the general fund special accounts for the fiscal year 2025. Okay, so motion by Member Rutledge, I think, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve the 25-1261 transfer of funds from the employee medical and hospital insurance to various employee medical and hospital insurance accounts as attached in the amount of $6,751,686 to cover employee medical and hospital insurance expenses within the various departments currently budgeted within the general fund insurance for fiscal year 2025. I got a motion by member Childress, a second by member Zay. Any discussion on this item? Member you?
So I had the question, actually, it pertains to this and the ones before it. So I understand this is something that we do in December and also right around this time. And I'm just wondering if we're kind of on track that we won't be out of these amounts of money for IMRF or for Social Security or for employee medical and hospital insurance. If that is, and what happens if we do start running out of money? Do we do a different transfer then?
Jeff? Thank you.
At this time, I'm happy to report that we're right on budget. In fact, in all of these accounts, we might wind up under budget because of, again, headcount that's not filled. That's the same thing with salaries and all of the budgets. So, we're right on track.
All right, thank you, member you, and thank you, Jeff Markowitz. So again, I think we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve 25-1262 transfer funds from the tuition reimbursement to various tuition reimbursement accounts as attached to the amount of $14,482 to cover tuition reimbursement expenses within the various departments currently budgeted with the general fund special accounts for fiscal year 2025. Motion by, I believe, member Zay, second by member Krajewski. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve 25-1257 budget transfers for 5/13/2025 for various companies and accounting units? Got a motion by member Zay again, a second by member Heather. All those in favor for this item? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries on that. Thank you so much. Moving on to procurement requisitions and the Human Services Chair, member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on HSP 2125, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Airgas USA LLC for liquid medical oxygen central supply system for the DuPage Care Center for the period June 1st, 2025 through May 31st, 2029 for a total contract amount not to exceed $125,661.21.
We've got a motion by member Schwarzy, a second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? Okay, no discussion on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on HSP 2225, recommendation for the approval of a contract to White and Company to provide professional architectural and engineering design for modernization and upgrades to the DuPage Care Center East Building for the period May 13th, 2025 through May 31st, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $724,500.
Got a motion by member Schwarzy, a second by member Zay, I believe. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to, thank you, member Schwarzy. Moving on to Judicial and Public Safety and member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on JPSP 22-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Key Tower LLC to provide radio tower maintenance and equipment upgrades for the Sheriff's Office for the period of May 13th, 2025 through May 12th, 2028 for a contract total not to exceed $211,365.
A motion by member Evans, second by member Rutledge. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to move on JPSP 23-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Curry Motors Frankfurt, Inc. to furnish and deliver one black Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicle for the detention screening transport for the period of May 13th, 2025 through May 12th, 2026 for a total contract amount not to exceed $46,261.
Got a motion by member Evans, a second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to move on JPSP 24-25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Curry Motors Frankfurt, Inc. to furnish and deliver one black Ford Transit 350 passenger van for the detention screening transport for the period of May 13th, 2025 through May 12th, 2026, for a total contract amount not to exceed $68,746.
A motion by member Evans, second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, member Evans. Moving on to Public Works and member Childress.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMP 2225 on the recommendation for the approval of a contract to Connolly Electric to furnish and install a replacement switch gear at the power plant for facilities management for a period of May 13, 2025 through May 12, 2026 for a total contract amount not to exceed $324,300.
A motion by member Childress, a second by member Krajewski. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next item is I seek a motion to move on FMP 2325 on the recommendation for the approval of a contract to Iris Group Holdings, Everon, for the preventive maintenance, testing, and repair of the Edward System Technology fire panels for the county campus for facilities management for a period of May 14, 2025 through May 13, 2027 for a total contract amount not to exceed $117,020.
We got a motion by member Heather, second by member Honig. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next item up, I'd like to move on FMP 2425 on the recommendation for the approval of a contract to Moran Inc. Mechanical Services to provide Solidyne Building Automatic Systems Planned Services Agreement at the Judicial Office Complex for the facilities management for a period of June 1, 2025 through May 31st, 2027 for a contract total not to exceed $36,000.
We got a motion by member Childers, a tie by, we'll give it to member Rutledge on this one. I think so. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Childers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMO 325, an ordinance regulating the issuance of permits for usage of space for outside entities for animal services, the auditorium at 421 County Farm Building and the courtyard on the DuPage County campus.
Okay, we've got a motion by member Desart, second by member Galassi. Any discussion on this item? Member Krajewski?
Health department, they're not under this?
The health department for,
Well, these are for regulating issuing of permits for usage of outside entities.
The health department, they'd have to pass it through their board. So we can provide this to them, but we wouldn't have control over their property there.
Who issues the permits?
The health department would be through Wheaton. Through that, although with our new zoning regulations, it creates a little bit of a question on that one, but if they want, we can talk to them, and if they would like to be under this, we can.
Otherwise, it's just like the normal goes to Wheaton and then these.
Yeah, normally it would go to Wheaton, but with,
come to us.
but with our, it would come to us because we now have zoning approval
Okay.
for our property.
Thank you.
all right, any other discussions on this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMR 225 on the recommendation for the approval of an agreement between the County of DuPage, Illinois, and the Child Friendly Court Foundation for a lease of space at the Judicial Office Facility on campus for facilities management for a period of May 1, 2025 through May 31, 2026 for an annual amount not to exceed $1.
Okay, so we've got a motion by member Childers, second by member Schwarzy. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, I'd like to move on PWP 1225 on the recommendation for the approval of a contract to DXP Enterprises doing business as Dry Down Equipment for two 6-inch all-weather combination pressure relief valve and one 6-inch safety selective valve for Public Works for a period of May 13, 2025 to November 30, 2025, for a total contract not to exceed $43,265.
All right, we have a motion by member Childress on this, a second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, member Childress. Moving on to stormwater and member Zay.
Morning, Madam Chair. Move on SMP 8-25, approve a contract issued to Curry Motors to deliver one Ford Explorer for stormwater management. Contract not to exceed $41,754. Contract is pursuant to the Government Joint Purchasing Act.
We got a motion by member Zay, second by member Krajewski. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on SMP 15-25, approval of contract issued to Sutton Ford to furnish one Ford 350 4x4 crew chassis cab for stormwater management, amount not to exceed $80,545 pursuant to Government Joint Purchasing Act.
Got a motion by member Zay. Who was the second? Member Krajewski. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on SMP 9-25, approve a contract issued to GSG Consulting for on-call geotechnical and engineering services stormwater management from May 13th, 2025 to November 30th, 2025. Contract not to exceed $45,000.
Got a motion by member Zay, second by member Krajewski. Any discussion on this item? Member you?
I just had a quick question because I noticed the dates were from May 13, 2025 through November 2025. And the other contracts are for November 30, 2026. So I wasn't sure if that was a typo.
Probably a typo. No.
We have Sarah Hun coming up from stormwater and she'll answer that.
Thank you and great question. This is actually a new surveyor or a new consulting firm that we're utilizing and we know we need them for a small period of time. This contract is an option to renew. And so if we are satisfied with the work that they are providing, we would bring a renewal forth to the board at that point. And so that's why it's a shorter term contract. The other firms we have a lot of experience with and we're comfortable with their body of work that they're carrying through that further date.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Good question. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on SM 10-25, contract issued to Environmental Consulting and Technology Professional Engineering Services for hydraulic modeling and floodplain mapping services from May 13th, 2025 to November 30th, 2026. Contract not to exceed $50,000.
The motion by member Zay, second by member Krajewski. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on SM 3-25, rescission of requisition 250588 issued to Property First to provide security at the Elmhurst Quarry.
The motion by member Zay, second by member Cahill. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on SMR 4-25, additional appropriation for the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency 2023 Section 319 non-point source pollution control financial assistance program in the amount of $472,453.
Got a motion by member Zay, second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on SM 5-25, approve of intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and Winfield Park District for the Winfield Creek Stream Bank Stabilization Project.
We've got a motion by member Zay, second by member Cahill. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on SMP 12-25, approval of a contract issued to Semperfi Landscaping for professional services for the Winfield Creek Stream Break Stabilization Project for stormwater management from May 13th, 2025 to November 30th, 2030. contract not to exceed $612,015.97 per lowest responsible bid.
Got a motion by member Zay, second by member Cahill, question by member Krajewski.
No, this is like a 5.5 year contract. Is that because they have to do it through the grant?
No, that's, when they do work, there's monitoring they have to do to make sure everything they plant takes. So they have to monitor it for up to 5 years,
The own stuff that they did.
the work that they did.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, member Zay. Thank you for coming up, Sarah.
But we monitor the work for them. We tell them if it's growing or not.
Yeah, we have to make sure those plants have taken. Okay, all in favor of this? Aye. Any opposition? This passes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on to SMP 13-25 for approval of a contract issued to Civil Environmental Consultants for on-call land surveying for stormwater management from May 13th, 2025 to November 20th, 2025 for the amount not to exceed $50,000.
Got a motion by member Zay, second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on SMP 16-25. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the Village of Itasca for the Schiller Street Basin Enhancement Project from May 13th, 2025 to November 30th, 2026, the amount not to exceed $100,000.
We got a motion by member Zay. It was a tie, but I'll go with member Cahill. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on 25-1092, amendment to resolution SMP 310-22 issued to SEMCON for engineering services for hydraulic modeling and floodplain mapping services for the Ferry Creek watershed for an extension of the contract from June 30th, 2025 to November 30th, 2025. Increase amount of $45,000.
Got a motion by member Zay, second by member Rutledge. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, member
Thank
Zay.
you, Madam Chair.
Moving on to technology and member Cover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on TEP 6-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to She International Corp. For the annual maintenance of Tanium Endpoint Security Platform for information technology for the period of June 7, 2025 through June 6, 2026 for a contract total amount of $51,744. Contract pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
We got a motion by member Cover, second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, member Covert. Moving on to transportation, and member Ozog is not here, so we're gonna go to member Tornatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of 25-0958 DTR 18-6B-17 and amendment to resolution DTR 01868-17, a local public agency agreement for federal participation in improvements along County Highway 43, County Farm Road, Section 14-00179-31-SP to decrease the funding in the amount of $91,225.53, resulting in a final county cost of $390,619.47.
We got a motion by member Tornatori, second by member Desart. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move approval of 25-1129 DTR 29A-18 and amendment to resolution DTR 29-18, a local agency agreement for federal participation for County Highway 55, Great Western Trail Improvement Section 15-275-00-BT to decrease the funding in the amount of $15,860.45, resulting in a final county cost of $71,771.55, a decrease of 18.10%.
Got a motion by member Tornatori, second by member Cahill. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
This time I move to combine items 7F3 through 7F7. These are all amendments to, recommendations for contracts.
We got a motion by member Tornatori to combine 7F3 through 7F7, seconded by member Heather. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of DTP 24-25, a recommendation for the approval of contract to Carosoft Technology Corporation for fleet trucking equipment and service agreement for the Division of Transportation for the period June 1, 2025 through May 31st, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $75,000. Move approval of DTP 29-25, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Curry Motors, Frankfurt, Inc., to furnish and deliver one new Ford Explorer for the Division of Transportation for the period of May 13th, 2025 through May 12th, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $46,261. Move approval of DTP 30-25, a recommendation for the approval of contract to Curry Motors, Frankfurt, Inc., furnish and deliver one new Ford F-150 4x4 Super Cab for the Division of Transportation for a contract total not to exceed $44,912. Move approval of DTP 31-25, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Safe Step LLC for sidewalk saw cutting as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period May 14, 2025 through February 28, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $70,000. And move approval of DTP 32-25, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Genuine Parts Company, DBA Napa Auto Parts, to furnish and deliver automotive repair and replacement parts as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period May 20, 2025 through April 30th, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $225,000.
A motion by member Torre for these items. Is there a second? Second by member Heather, and we've got a question by member Krajewski.
Yeah, when we go out to buy these fleet vehicles like the Ford Explorer, do we buy them multiple ones for the various departments? Because I know the Curry Motors one was $5,000 more from transportation than the one we bought in stormwater. Is this because they had different outfit of the vehicles, or we just go buy, we need 6 Ford Explorers for our staff? And then we get them 6 for the same price, or is it? I noticed this one was $5,000 more than the last one on stormwater for the Ford Explorer.
Okay, we're gonna have Steve Travia, Director of Transportation, up and answer your question for you.
Maybe stormwater does a better job on negotiating the deal.
Perhaps, but I think really the issue is how they're outfitted. So yeah, we've got a contract to get the vehicle we need, right?
So stormwater outfits theirs differently than transportation?
Stormwater outfits it differently than state's attorney outfits it differently than stormwater.
Okay, so we get the same Ford Explorer, but they outfit the vehicle differently?
Comes with, right, one might be a 4x4, one might not be a 4x4. So.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are passed. Thank you, member Torre. Going to finance resolutions, and I'll hand it over to Vice Chair Cahill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve FIR 0070-25, acceptance and appropriation of the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services Access and Visitation Grant, Program Year 26 Intergovernmental Agreement, number 202655024 IGAB Company 5000, Accounting Unit 1670, in the amount of $102,000.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Heather. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve FIR 0079-25, acceptance and appropriation of additional funding for the DuPage Care Center Fund, Company 1200, Accounting Unit 2040, in the amount of $724,500.
Okay, we've got a motion by member Cahill, second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move to approve FIR 0072-25, revision to the personnel budget, community services.
And a motion by member Cahill, second by member Glassy. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move to approve FIR 0080-25, approval of a grant agreement between the County of DuPage and Northern Illinois Food Bank for the use of food insecurity funds in the amount of $500,000.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Shorzy. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on FIR 0084-25, authorization of a contract with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 399.
Motion by member Cahill, second by member Heather.
Thank you. Now I move to amend Resolution FIR 0084-25 to change the start date of the contract from 12/1/2025 to 5/24/2025.
Got a motion on the amendment by member Cahill, second by member Schwarzy, I believe. Any discussion on the amendment as presented? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then do we go back to the regular?
Now I now move to approve FIR 0084-25 as amended.
Got it. Motion by member Cahill, second by member, who was the second on that one? Member Covert. All in favor of the motion as amended now? Aye. Any opposed? The motion as amended is approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on FIR 0087-25, authorization of a contract with the Metropolitan Alliance of Police, Chapter 126.
Motion by member Cahill, second by member Schwarzy. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on FIR 0088-25, authorization of a contract with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150 supervisors.
Motion by member Cahill, second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move to approve FIR 0086-25, ratification of an emergency procurement to Coalition Incident Response, Inc. for mitigation of a cybersecurity incident for the Finance Department for a contract total amount not to exceed $54,900. Ratification of an emergency procurement per 55 ILCS of the DuPage County Procurement Ordinance. Authority to proceed with emergency procurement was granted by the DuPage County Board Chair on April 29th, 2025.
Motion by member Cahill, second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So I move on fiscal year 2026 budget items, number 198, 25-1244, budget preparations instructions, fiscal year 2026, budget letter and instructions.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Galassi. And you have a question, member Galassi?
I do, and you did mention this in your chair remarks, so I really appreciate that you brought this to everyone's attention. But I also wanted to reiterate the necessity of budgeting for 26 off of 25 actuals as opposed to off of 25 budget, because last year we noticed that so many of the department heads and elected officials were budgeting off of the last year's budget, which is not really the most fiscally prudent way to prepare a budget. So, and that was resulting in, large amounts of surpluses, which, even though it's great to have a surplus, it's not really fiscally responsible as a board to be year after year having these very large surpluses because we're not doing the best job that we could with the budget process. So I guess my question is that laid out specifically in the instructions to what you mentioned in your chair remarks that we should be utilizing actuals versus budget?
I believe it is, but let me double check with, is it Jeff want to come up and answer this? Jeff Martinovich or Jennifer? Okay, Jeff. Jeff's going to come up, and I think there is a huge specific instructions. And I do believe it's in there.
It's laid out in the financial policies and some of the instructions on how to prepare the budget. We do request that departments look at where they've landed, if you will, on the actuals for at least the last 3 years. We provide them with all that data, so they have it when they go to budget. So we'll continue to reiterate that. Once the budgets come in and at the end of June when the date is, we will go back and look at a lot of those. In particular this year, I think, Nick and myself and the county board chair have heard some of the comments and remarks that the board members have had on preparing budgets within actuals, especially with what's going on this year. Things have started out very well financially as far as revenues go, but there's still some instability, if you will. So we don't know how that's going to play out. So we'd like to have budgets as tight as possible going into this year. And we also probably need to tackle the headcount issue, if you will. That's causing surpluses to personnel each year. When you compound, personnel and some of the benefits that go into that, it adds up pretty quickly. So we'll monitor that.
I know that, thank you for all those comments and listening to our comments as the budget process was taking place last year. I just because it wasn't done in many cases last year, was there added verbiage in the instructions?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been articulated to many departments already.
Okay.
And they've heard the comments from the board because we've had some of those discussions offline, if you will, about what the goals are of the county board. But it is in here. And it's all that data is provided.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll make sure we continue to reiterate that. We did
Yep.
have a discussion with the finance chair just last week about some of these issues that you brought up. So I know Chair Garcia and Member Cahill, where the Finance Committee Chair and Vice Chair, are going to be very involved with this year's budget process, along with our County Board Chair.
Great. Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Member Evans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to that point, when it is presented to County Board this year, is there going to be a change in what we see? I don't want to go searching for it.
Yeah.
It would be, actuals and budget for every year, correct?
We're going to make the reports very consistent throughout. So, you'll have I'll call it an income statement, and it will show what's been asked for. Prior year budget, prior year actual, prior year budget, prior year actual. So everybody can look at that based upon the comments that you have. We have the ability to provide that. We've heard the comments from the board, and we're going to provide that, but we're going to make all those reports to the board consistent, and we've already set up OpenGov to do that. So the other thing I want to reiterate, I'm glad I'm up here, is if you are a chairperson of a certain committee, you're probably going to want to have budget hearings. So we'll provide those reports before those departments present to you. But again, feel free to ask them questions about that at that time. Reiterate some of the stuff, but look at the numbers, if you will. I know a lot of times we get budget presentations that look at goals and objectives and things like that, but the focus really isn't on the numbers as much as they should be. So we'd like to bring that forward during our committee discussions too, as a focus on the numbers.
Member Cahill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Vice Chair of Finance, I would like to ensure that each elected official who comes and presents the budget to the board is here in person, so that we may ask questions of their budget this upcoming year.
Yes, and what I will say is, a lot of times, like for example, JPS, JPS has a lot of the bigger departments that present to that committee. If you're not on JPS, I think that the chair would agree that it's okay if other board members came just to hear some of those presentations. So it's important, especially with those larger departments, that
I'm referring
see
to
those
each
presentations.
elected official's office.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've talked with the finance chair, and we're going to ask that they come out and make the presentations.
Yeah, I've said the same thing, Vice Chair Cahill, so I feel very strongly that they come before us also. I believe it was Member Eckhoff was next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I was going to say this at county board at some point, but since we're all talking about it now, we've had 3 countywide elected officials this year give raises to their employees. And 2 of them did it the right way by going to staff and talking about it. But I think the fully proper way is that those raises come through the county board and not through staff alone. And I think the fact that those 3 individuals have been able to do that is indicative of the fact that the budget is too big for their departments, because they've got that amount of flexibility, which is quite a bit of money. So I would like to have a policy where any raises, especially when they're not just for one individual, but for a broad spectrum of people in the department,
are gonna be made, that it comes through us. And that the goal of our budget process be that we're having a tight budget so that they have to come to us if they think it's appropriate for extra money from our budget to give it to them for their employees.
And I think that's what we're going to be doing, because we're going to be dealing with the actuals, and that's why Jeff mentioned the head counts also, so that we'll be really looking at that strongly right now, because I think a lot of them were open head counts, and so they had extra money. So we're really going to be looking at the money and making sure that the numbers are correct and what we should be following for the next couple of years.
If I could just comment real quickly on that, Member Eckhoff brings up a really good point. The issue that we have is, you're right, maybe there was too much money in those budgets. And you saw that happen. However, elected departments in particular, once the budget is approved, they have the ability to do those equity increases or spend that money within their budget in the line items as they see fit. And that's been dictated by state's attorney opinion.
I understand that, but we don't have to give them so much money. I mean, the chair started out the year by giving everybody a 3.5% raise, if I remember right. So our goal should be to have a budget that they can live within from what they're presenting. And history has shown that the treasurer's office did the 1 year, and there was a big deal. And now we've got 3 other countywides doing it. We're giving them too much money. So I feel like giving whatever they come and present to us and cutting it by 15% and saying, okay, if you need more later, come back, because you have to go through us, not just, some slush fund that we gave you at the beginning of the budget year that you can use willy-nilly because we have no control over it once we give it to you.
Thank you, Member Eckhoff. Member LaPlante, I believe, is next.
My question was asked and answered. Thank you.
All right, Member Krajewski?
Thank you. And picking up on what Member Galassi stated about the actuals, 24 actual and 25. It's May 13th right now. Can every elected official come to us right now or come to you and give them their actual budget through the end of April, what they've spent?
Come to me?
We
can look it up.
I mean, can they all, because sometimes they don't have journal entries done and stuff. Could they give us right now actual through April 30th? And part of the issue too is when we get these budgets in prior years, we're in September and they're giving us actuals from like May or June. And then we're sitting there looking at their budget from last year and the budget from the year before. But the actual numbers, I mean, it's May 13th now. Every department should know exactly what their actuals are through April. And my question is, do you think everyone could come forward, all these elected officials in the departments, and tell us what they actually spent through April?
Did you close April? Tomorrow.
So when you close April, I mean, you have everything from other elected officials, entries, and everything that needs to be in budget.
We have most of the information from the elected officials. Every now and again, I do have to reopen a period, for example, like sales tax. We will not have sales tax, right?
Comes 3 months in advance.
Correct. But for the expenses, most of the expenses, I very seldom have to open up a period to put in expenses for the prior period. I get a few requests now and again, but overall, not very many.
So then when we get these presentations in front of us, we should be able to have that in that actual column.
Yes.
Actual up to, once it's past the 13th, 14th, 15th, we should have the prior month in there.
Yes, and OpenGov is updated every single day. So when the report runs, if it runs on a Monday, you have the expenses through that Friday.
Because everything we've been getting in prior years, the actuals are in there from like May and June.
Yes.
We're sitting there in September and October trying to double that, where are they at? And we can't even look at actuals, which is what Member Galassi and how we should be doing it is looking on where you're actual at. And as it gets closer to the end of the year, you'll be knowing exactly where you're at. Every month we should be getting, as it moves on, we should be getting the new actuals to see where these departments are at. And I agree with Member Eckhoff, we've just been given way too much money to these elected officials. They had open head counts that they've never filled. So they've had so much money in these budgets because we haven't tightened them up and looked at actuals, that they have so much flexibility to just give out as much raises as they want without even coming back to us. That's why we need to really close these budgets to really close to what they are. And if they do need more money, they got to come and make the argument of why they need it. And we've been very good with when ones have done that in doing it, if it makes sense.
And OpenGov will update the actuals every single day. They're updated. So they're current.
I just want to make sure when we give it to us to look at, it's
yes
current.
We will be,
hasn't been.
Finance will be providing the reports this year.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Okay, we've got, member Galassi, I believe was next.
Just a small point. I know in addition to headcount, one of the line items that was causing a lot of surplus was travel expenses. So I just want to make sure that we're, looking at
Amongst
those
other
closely.
items. Yeah, there's other line items too that we did shore that up last year a little bit, but we're trying to reduce it every year if it's not being spent.
Okay, member you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So who dictates what happens to remaining funds in each elected official's budget or any department? And I ask this because Chair Garcia and I had talked with Jennifer Sin about something called bonus pay, that certain elected officials will provide bonuses at the end of the year with the remaining funds in their budget. And I know that the treasurer has given bonuses, the auditor, the coroner's office, clerk, the election commission, all of those things. And so I'm just wondering, what happens to remaining funds and who dictates that?
Yes, so as we approach closer to the end of the fiscal year, we start to get a really good picture of what our income statement will look like. If revenues are going to exceed expenditures. That's when we start talking about a surplus. Hopefully we have a surplus. In the last several years, we've had a surplus. So any unspent money in every budget, including the elected departments, rolls down to the bottom line called reserve or fund balance. And we use a percentage of expenditures to kind of determine how much we need in reserve. Well, we're very healthy in our reserves, but we can't use that to fund future year operating expenses. That's kind of the caveat, if you will. So we go through this process of allocating the surplus instead of it having go into our reserves. But again, as we get closer to the end of the year, we start seeing that picture of whether we're going to have a surplus or not. And that's when we start developing our year-end projections. So that'll happen probably starting in September. But I can tell you right now, our spending is down again and our revenues are up, which is a good thing. But we have to address that in the 26 budget.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Sure.
So like you're saying then, you can't use surplus from one year to operating expenses for the next year. And that is pursuant to statute? Is it because it's county board finance or policy, or what exactly?
It's prudent budgetary policy, if you will. We see other counties and municipalities who use their cash reserves because they don't have current revenues to fund current expenses in an upcoming year. So they draw down those reserves for operating expenses. And then what happens is they run what's called a structural deficit. You've probably heard that before, structural deficits. That's exactly what that is. When you increase wages, benefits, operating expenses like that, without having the revenues to cover that in a year, you create structural deficits. And you don't want to cover those by reserve because eventually they'll run out. And we've seen that happen in other counties and municipalities. So we stay away from that here in DuPage County.
Thank you.
Okay, member Zay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what I'm hearing from Jeff and from a lot of our board members is that this really needs to be a budget policy. We're giving plenty of notice. Just don't come with your document that you hand in on June 27th or whatever. When you come and do your presentation, it better be your document plus what your actuals are as of the prior month before, so we can actually get the numbers of what's going on. And again, it's not like we want to do this, we want to do that. We are in a surplus here because we didn't hire, we're 10 headcount down, but my overtime is here because the 10 people we didn't hire. There needs to be actual budget questions and answers, just not the feel good, hey, this is what we want to do. And I think the budget calendar that the finance chair is putting out will give people plenty of notice of when they're coming before this board. And I think it is, in the past, we've had countywide elected officials who haven't presented their budget. I don't care if their budget's only 450,000 or whatever it is. They should have the right to come and give a budget presentation for hey, I need more money, or hey, this is what my budget is, they should all have that right to do it, and we should have the right then to question them back on that. So
And
I
I have
think
had
that
that, I have had a
process,
discussion with Jeff, you know, I'm very, want all of them to come and give their presentation either at this board or at the JPS or whatever board that they are actually, headed up by. And again, you're right, we're giving them plenty of notice. We're in the middle of May and it's not due till June. So I think there should be no reason for them to get this done in time with, especially, focusing on the numbers, as Jerry said.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
what we can do, and finance will kind of play the guinea pig, is maybe finance will do its budget presentation first. And we can have it up there and then everybody can see what we propose and how we want to have it laid out. So any changes that the board or other committees want to the presentation of the finance department budget, we can make that for other departments. We'll start, we'll lay it out, and we'll be the first one to present, and that'll give everybody a good idea what's needed when you do those other presentations.
Perfect.
and again, things will be different because the federal money is gonna be gone. So we're gonna be back on our own. That was kind of a crutch for us for many years, but now we're back to revenues and spending and, you know.
Correct.
Any grant we get's great, but we can't always depend on it.
Correct. Okay, I think I had member Krajewski next. No, you're done? Okay, moving on to member LaPlante.
Thank you, Chair. Aside from asking nicely, is there any way to enforce that elected officials come here to present their budget?
No.
Okay, so then what happens?
So we had one elected department that a couple of years ago, the finance department had to prepare that on that department's behalf, and then it's presented. We had to come up with the numbers, and the board understood at that time that that's what it was and approved it. So we do our best to get them here, and I think 99% of the departments comply with that, and they will. And I'll work with the finance chair and the county board chair to make sure everybody presents.
I'm gonna go down to every single department and add requests if they don't answer us per email, but we do have no way of making them go up there, unfortunately.
No, we do.
We do, we could, with our vote, we could, right?
With our vote, we could,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So that's something that we perhaps need to be aware of, this board. And I think it's fine to say which department chairs or elected officials didn't show up, because I think the more closely aligned we are with the reality of what happened and what we experienced, the better prepared we'll be the next time. Thank you.
Member Galassi?
Thank you. This is very specific, but to Member Zay's point, like as far as what we would like to see and the procedural, I would like to see at least 24s actual in addition to what we know of 25, and ideally 23s as well, because that way you can see trends. If that's too much of an ask, then at least the full year of 24.
We'll give you all the way back to 21, 22.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Member Cahill?
Yes, thank you, Member Galassi. I wanted to say that is what my point was also. Can we go back a few years to look at budget versus actual? Second, let's be real here. There's one department, Jean Kazmarek, our county clerk, who does not come forth and present her budget. So I asked the board to all of us ask her to come forward and present her budget. If she does not do that, I believe I will be voting no on her budget. So I think it's a reasonable thing to ask to come forth and present your budget, County Clerk Jean Kazmarek. I'm calling you out on it. Second, I want to say the audit report is coming out, and there will be management letter comments in that audit report, guys, about what has been happened this past year in the county clerk's office. So let's talk about that. That's going to be the budget is first, then the audit report comes out. I think that the clerk needs to come forth before this board and present her budget and answer our questions.
I agree wholeheartedly. Member Krajewski?
Yeah, just saying if whatever the elected officials departments don't present the budgets the way we asked for it, then that's fine. We just throw it out and then we sit down, and I'll volunteer to be one of them to sit down and put the budget together for them. I know Zay's got some stuff over there, so he'd probably want to be on there too. I see Member Galassi, we'll sit down like you did before and we'll make a budget and we'll do our best guess. And I guarantee it'll be a really tight budget. So That's why very encouraging to come to us and let us know. If they don't want to do that, then we have to do it for them and we'll figure it out and we'll give them their budget because we're the ones that control the purse strings. We give them the money, they run their department. And if they can't bring us what we ask for us to make decisions, then we'll have to do it our best way we can.
Again, I am encouraging all departments to start working on their budget now. Again, it's May, you have till June to get them done, and then we will have you up here to present, and that's all elected officials and all of their departments. So that's all I can say at this point in time. Is there any other discussion on this? Member Eckhoff?
I just wanted to make sure the record reflected that Brian and Jeff said they agreed with me.
What did I say?
He once noted that you agreed with him today. Thank you, Member Eckhoff. Any other discussion on this? Otherwise, all in favor of this item? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 9B.
Thank you. I move to approve FIR 0082-25, approval of the FY 2026 budget calendar.
Got a motion by Member Cahill, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve FIR 0083-25, acceptance and approval of the fiscal year 2026 DuPage County financial budget policies.
Motion Member Cahill, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor of this item? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move to receive and place on file informational payment of claims, wire transfers, county board resolutions, and grant proposal notifications.
Got a motion by Member Cahill to receive and place on file, second by Member Galassi. Any discussion on any of these items? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Member Vice Chair Cahill. Is there any old business today? Member Krajewski.
We're going to move into the budget process and, we got to keep an eye on the revenues, how things are going. But so far, I think Jeff indicated, but, our sales tax for the first 3 months is $2.6 million more than last year. Month over month, we've been exceeding last year's actuals. This last month, it was 1.5 million over. So, but if we see that trend continuing, I know we put 500,000 on the food insecurity, but maybe Member Schwarzy and his committee can look at that. But if we are running continually, well, on the positive side, we can look to do something with that money right away for Greg if you guys run out of money for that, because I know that's a very important issue. And again, as everybody's been mentioning about these actuals, and knowing where we're at, so we don't have this at the end of the year, this huge surplus that we're running around figuring out what to do with. If we know that's coming through the year, we can make some decisions on things that are important to a lot of the board members here. If we do have that, and we can maybe do that this year, as we mentioned about wanting to make sure we don't, get it into next year, we can do it this year. So just monitoring it, every month, I think we should look as a board, because if we do have a little more revenues and that looks right, we may want to help some of these other programs that are important to our board members. Thank you.
And I agree, those are a very, food insecurity is one of the high priorities. I think it's going to be the high priority on the Chair Conroy's budget for next year, as is affordable housing and some of the other things.
And our local distributive share of the income tax from the state is also up about 400,000. So we're running good on those two revenue sides.
And I agree, but we also have to be, and this is something I'm going to keep pushing, financially prudent. We have to be financially prudent. We just don't know what's going to happen right now. So we have to be absolutely financially prudent. So, any other old business? Member Dessart.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add to that conversation about being financially prudent. We don't know what's coming from the federal government at this point. And even though I'm happy to hear from Jeff that our revenues are higher than normal, are we giving any direction to our department heads or elected officials regarding cutting your budget 10% or 5% or whatever? Or are we just going to go ahead and assess that once we get the budgets?
20%.
Thank you. I know in the past we have done that. We've said, cut your budget 10% or 13% or whatever. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's we'll wait till the budgets come in. It's a little early. And then we'll go from there, because we have to project revenues, see where we're at, and we'll see where the expenses are. Hopefully we won't have to do it. that type of scenario. But that's the time frame to do it. Once that's all the budgets have come in and we've kind of shorted up a little bit.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Chair.
Jeff. Okay, any other discussion on this, on old business? No, no other old business, okay. New business, anybody have any new business? Okay, we do have executive session, so please stay in your seats. We have a couple items to talk about under executive session, so we need a motion to move into executive session. What? Who made the motion? Oh, Member Krajewski made the motion to move into executive session. Member Honig seconded. Is roll call, please?
All right, Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert.
Aye.
Member Desart.
Here.
Member Eckhoff.
Aye.
Member Evans. Member Galassi.
Aye.
Member Garcia.
We are in executive session, so I'm asking for silence, please.
Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozag. Member Rutledge. Member Swarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Aye.
And Member Zay.
Okay, we're gonna give it a couple minutes and we're gonna move into executive session. Now you can. All right, everyone who's not supposed to be in here for executive session, please leave. If you're online, please get off of online, please.